You're listening to All Things 3D, where we talk about the world of fabricating, designing, and capturing in the third dimension.
Hey there. I've had a lot of people ask me how I wash my hair and face, and I thought I'd show you how I do it. Let's see. To get started, these are the things I need. A bag of warm water, a little no-rinse shampoo, towel, and my comb. What I like to do is start by just putting some hot water, squirting it onto my scalp. And I have a mirror here so I can kind of watch what I'm doing. Sometimes the water gets away from you, and you try and catch as much as you can. And I just work the water up through to the end of my hair. And I take my no-rinse shampoo and squirt it also on the scalp a little bit and rub it in. Again, kind of working it out to the ends. And sometimes I'll actually take my comb, work it all the way to the ends. And I like to take my towel while I have the shampoo in there and just kind of work it. Because without standing under running water, you kind of need to use the towel a little bit to help get some of the dirt out. I like to follow that by a little more water. It's called no-rinse shampoo, but I think it's best if you use a little water with it. It actually feels kind of squeaky clean right now. Now I'll take the dry part of my towel. We use towels for quite a while here, since we have limited supplies. We use them wisely. There, I think that's pretty good. And now as my hair dries, as the water evaporates from my hair, it will become humidity in the air, and then our air conditioning system will collect that into condensate, and it won't be long, and our water processing system will turn that into drinking water. At the end, I just do one final comb through to make sure there are no snarls and snags. And while it dries, I like to let it stay free. I don't put it back in a ponytail while it's drying. And that is how I wash my hair in space on International.
Morning, everybody. Hi, this is Mike Balzer, and if you've already been nauseous from my little opening video, there's good reason for it. This is the BBC presented ISS demo that I'm sharing a little bit of video capture that I did last night. And I have to say, this was a very realistic experience. Obviously, I'm not in free weight, but the illusion that you're given that you can push yourself through in microgravity is pretty phenomenal. Now, I could see if we used a spring mechanism in order to support ourselves, it could make this even what would you call it, more realistic? Well, regardless, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But the other thing that I wanted to bring up today was the fact that I am no longer going to be doing things, as I called it before, rummaging in the tech closet. I'm going to create a separate hour and a half that will be based on reviews, demos, and some primers on certain things, or primer, depending on how you want to pronounce that, on certain things that I've been working on over the last week or two that I you might feel might be something that you'd be interested in. But keeping that separate from the news, I think, is better. I plan to release the first episode on Monday. I'm still debating if it'll be live using the Google Hangouts, which frankly only allows 720. I may record it live. I shouldn't say it shouldn't be live, but well, I may actually do it live. I may actually do a full, I think Google does allow 1080p streamed if you do it externally, but I will record it as well and maybe upload that. That way, I think the clarity, more importantly, the audio, which I sad to say, and I hope you're not too disappointed in me that the previous, what was it, not last Thursday or last Saturday, but the Saturday before that, the audio towards the end was really bad. I had to pull it down and redub it. So hopefully that will not happen today. Since I don't have an actual producer other than myself, I cannot hear what's actually going on outside of the event. So if you're listening and you hear it, don't hesitate to shoot me a message through the YouTube message channel. I'll see it and then I'll be able to respond immediately. Normally, what happens in this particular or in that particular episode is that I have echo that occurred because I had a separate mic still turned on and my second camera that I forgot to turn off, and that just seems to wreak havoc on my preamp. So again, I apologize for that, and since I will not be running any second cameras today, I should not have that problem. Cross fingers. Okay, with all that being said, I think it's time to get started, and so we're going to bring up some items um, for updates for last week. One of the things that I'm going to be covering, and I have them right here, is the Eora uh, laser scanner. If you've been following me, we had them on and interviewed them, but they finally released a product. I got mine last week, and essentially it is a robust, heavy, uh, well-machined aluminum structure with a green laser light, and it pretty much works as identified. It currently only works with iOS, so I was using it with an iPhone 7 Plus, and I will be demonstrating that and give you my perspective on it. I think for its price, it is probably one of the best laser scanners out there. Now, there are some glitches in the software. Maybe it's just me, and there is a little bit of a setup process, but we'll go through that on Monday. The other thing is I got finally the new Google Daydream View. Um, and yes, it does have larger lenses. Sadly, they went with Fresnel lenses. And those of you who have an Oculus or an HTC Vive or some of the other units out there, you may be familiar with this headset. It's a little, I wouldn't say disappointing. I mean, the quality is still good. Just keep in mind it's a Fresnel lens, so any bright scene is going to create some haloing. And I also appreciate the new controller that came with it. But again, we'll give more detail later on. We don't want to give it all up today. And then we're also going to be covering the Brekel motion capture from Jasper. If you remember, he's from the Netherlands. We've interviewed with him. I finally got a chance to play with it, and I was amazed by it. So again, not only will be demonstrating that, and then finally, I'm going to be looking at a little primer on how to convert a Mixamo, which now is Adobe Fuse, skeleton into a Unreal skeleton. And there's basically little minor things that need to be done, but it can be done. And so if you're interested in bringing in characters from Mixamo, you might be interested in that. Okay, well, let's get right into the news. Well, let's see what we got first. Did I bring it up? Did I forget? Uh, yeah, I have it up. Okay, so let's get right into the first item today. Here we go. And this is an update. If you remember, I've used 3D Slicer extensively in past years. And frankly, I think it is one of the better open source applications out there. We actually interviewed one of the main project managers of this. What do you want to call it? Open source software. It has grown. We're now in Slicer, our 4.8 released, and then there's a 4.9 just waiting in the wings. Now, I haven't kept up with it, but some of you out there may have seen some of my previous videos, as well as some of um, my previous episodes, but you may have already been working with this particular piece of software. So if you have not, download it. like a lot of open source, there's a lot of things it can do. There are a lot of tools in it, so you will have to spend a little bit of time getting to know it. But once you do, it is a very powerful tool, and they have some new slicer solutions that are available for it. And I found that this to be a very powerful tool if you're planning to analyze your own MRI or CT scans. And with the newer tools that you can now utilize in it, it makes it that much more powerful. If those of out there would like to have some more information on this, maybe another primer, let me know and I'll set one up. But again, I've got a few others, and I can, if you email me or just go through my list of YouTube videos, I think I even have a playlist that talks mainly about medical stuff. So again, a powerful tool. It's been updated, and then let's see what else we got. Well, I guess we can get right into 3D technology. I thought this was, I, I don't know, for me, it was very, what do you want to call it, in depth, and more importantly, I'd say back in the mid 1980s, I had played around with some of the mathematics and probably more dreaming than actually functional applications. But I always thought of holograms and actually had created one using lasers, but I thought this could be done mathematically, but it is very complex. And what I think is extremely interesting about this publication and is the fact that NVIDIA is utilizing their graphics chip in order to do the mathematics to literally create holographic renderings. And if you've never seen a hologram, find the nearest store that carries them and go ahead and try them. In fact, I've talked about them several times earlier in, what was it? Probably 2014. There's a company, and I don't remember the name at this time, but I'll put it in the show link, that actually, if you send them an STL file or a 3D file, they will convert it into a hologram, print it, and then send it back to you. Now, this is digitally created, so there is some resolution issues, but the fact is that you could take a 3D object, create a hologram of it, and then shine a green laser light source on it for the green laser light or the green filtered version, or they even have color now, is just, I don't know, I thought it was wow. So I had a couple of my 3D skulls done in that manner, and the results I thought were pretty stunning. Now, they can be a little expensive, but the fact is that we'll be able to utilize this same technology, same process to create holograms, to create light fields. Now, again, remember, holograms, if you've seen one, contain all the angular information as well as the lighting information of a scene. So that's why you can look around a hologram and see around the edges. And so what this process does is it captures information about an object from all those different angles as well as position in space, and then converts it into the using spherical waves into a wide field interactive 3D computer graphic. And supposedly, if you can read the article, it goes further through on it. Let's see if I can bring that up. Do I even have? Yeah, I have a little video too that I can show. So I'll go ahead and do that.
Over the past few years, making virtual reality and augmented reality more comfortable requires providing a compelling visual experience. Matching the visual cues from versions to accommodation is crucial for allowing the user to wear the device for an extended period of time, and providing focus cue has been an important topic over the past few years for near-eye displays. The existing technologies to provide focal cue that support accommodation includes gaze contingent varifocal displays, multifocal displays, or light field displays. However, these technologies tend to trade one feature for another. For example, spatial angular and temporal trade-off, mechanical movement, size and weight, resolution and diffractions are among the most highly researched topics. Hologram is the ultimate auto-stereoscopic display we want to achieve. It has high spatial resolution and high angular resolution, making the display as a virtual window. It is thin and lightweight, and also has wide field view and support accommodation. Unfortunately, a computer-generated holography failed to deliver the same price due to limits in technology under plane wave illumination, and the viewing distance and the field of view is constrained, making it unsuitable for near-eye displays. In this work, we extend the limit of computer-generated holography under spherical wave illumination. With respect to the position of the hologram and the eye, a multi-view light field is rendered to fully support continuous focus Q. And we synthesize a color computer-generated hologram based on Fresnel diffraction integral for all points in the three-dimensional space. Here we first show the phase map calculated from the superposition of all wavefronts on the spatial light modulator. And unlike prior computer-generated hologram research, we also utilize the amplitude map to enhance the image quality. Detailed comparisons are in the paper. Our computer-generated hologram provides continuous focus Q that supports user to freely accommodate into the depth. Here we show that the focal plane sweeping back and forth into the space, and fine features are revealed while out of focus blurs are shown beyond the focused plane. In addition, we can also achieve interactive holographic light field rendering and hologram computation at full HD resolution. In this example, the engine and tire rim of the motorcycle are rotated by the designer, and we can see in real time the computed amplitude map, and the phase map is updated from the Fresnel diffraction integral. And we are several orders of magnitude faster than prior work. In the paper, we describe how we modify the rendering algorithm to provide a per pixel accurate rendering of the diffraction cone, that solves the geometry clipping and aliasing problem in previous research. We also describe how we implement a GPU accelerated computation and achieve a performance boost of 13,000 times faster than prior work. We derive several theoretical limits on field of view, eye relief, depth of field, sampling and aliasing, and performance scaling for future hardware. To conclude, we hope the joint understanding of both light field and computer-generated hologram will stimulate a wider applications and adoption of hologram in our everyday life.
Well, as you can see, pretty stunning stuff. And one of the reasons this is being released, publication date was November 27, is I guess SIGGRAPH is coming up in, I want to say China. And one of the things that they're going to be showing off is this. So again, if you're not familiar with holograms, please take an opportunity. This is the future. The fact is that they're able to compute this in real time. Just speaks highly of what NVIDIA has been doing. And even though I've got some anger issues with them, I think this is going to be groundbreaking. So keep an eye out for them. All right, on to the next item. This isn't as much about technology, but more kind of like a warning. The Better Business Bureau, BBB, has issued a warning for consumers about maker geeks. So if you're a 3D fabricator, one of the things that they're known for is creating filament. And I'll actually run out to their website right now. You can go back and read more about that article. But this is their website. You know, obviously they offer you the sky as far as bulk discounts and free shipping. I did look them up on Amazon, and they are not selling on Amazon. So be very careful with buying anything that you can't find in any other distributor, such as Amazon. Who's another one? Newegg or anything like that, because you never really know what you're getting. If you go back and read the citation offer or issued by the Better Business Bureau, they've essentially had lots of complaints, people not receiving their filament. Now, they're, you know, to give them, they've done an F rating, to give maker geeks an opportunity. I guess they've expanded. They plan to do better, but you know, with so many resources available, I think we can look elsewhere for filament. So again, I mean, it's up to you. Maybe you've got a better experience with them, but there are a ton of other 3D filament people out there. So please take some time, do some research for buying. Nothing worse than 3D fabricating something that takes 8 hours and the seventh hour, just because of poor filament quality control, your print fails. Very important. Spend a little extra for it. And you know, the fact that they identify that's made in the USA, and we've had them on. Geez, the names escapes me, but they're right above me in the state of Washington, Vancouver, Washington. Gosh, sorry that I forgot the name. I will make sure to show their products again next week. They're made in the USA too, and much more reliable. And maybe as we're going through another video, I'll come up with it. So, and I've actually worked with them, tried out their stuff. But there are many people out there making 3D filament. So if you're already into it, you probably already have a vendor you work with. If you're just getting into it, holidays are coming up. Beware, there are some that obviously are exploiting our business. And little side note, a little sad today. The- oh well, I'll get into that a little bit later. Okay, so that's about it for 3D technology. Let's move into 3D in design and architecture. And basically, I'm going to show off a few applications, and this one is called SelfCAD. Now, I actually, let's see if it should come up on mine. I'm going to log in, but I have found um, that, and I don't know, I'm going to try and launch it, but I tried to launch this the other day and it never loaded the core components. Oh, looks like it's starting now. So maybe they just had, since they essentially had a few news items out, maybe a lot of people were signing up. Okay, so this is the first time that I've used this, so I'm not really going to get into it, but this is basically a cloud-based, web-based design tool that's not only used for 2D, but excuse me, 3D, but also 2D design. And so they have basically a little bit more than just 3D designers working with it. I guess illustrators have been working with it as well. Um, I have not tried it yet, so I will have to get back with you on that. But it is free right now. For I think 30 days, and then it's $4.95 unless you're in either a student or a teacher. So if you're a teacher and would like to be able to demonstrate an easy to use application, and again, I have not tried it, so I can't confirm that, but other people have. You might want to look into this because it is free to you, and if you're a student, you might want to look into it either. Now, in saying that, my tool of choice has always been Fusion 360. I've been using that for about almost 2.5 years now, as soon as it came out. So I'm a little partial to that. And again, if you're a student or if you make less than, I think it's $10,000, the application is free to you, even if you're trying to establish a business. And I personally feel the tools are very powerful, not only in the CAD and the creation of 3D items, but also in CAM. That's where they seem to excel. And I have not done much in that area, but there are a number of tutorials and in our interviews with the people behind Fusion 360. So, but if you want to get started, supposedly this is the direction. It kind of reminds me of a couple other tools AutoCAD had that were a little easier to do or use. And as you can see there with my mini factory, built into it. You can export these directly out, and then it can save in multiple file formats as well as save into the cloud. And then I guess they may even have their own 3D part library. So again, I have not spent any time with this yet, so I will, and maybe later on give a primer or at least a review. But the fact that it came up today is a good start. That maybe as a cloud-based application works pretty well. Also, keep in mind my co-host Chris, who has been kind of out of it lately. If you've been wondering where he's been extremely busy. So we've kind of taken a hiatus as far as him being on the show for a while. I hope to have him back on monthly. But he is a proud user of Onshape, which is another cloud-based tool. Now it's a little more expensive, but I think it also has student and teacher discounts, and but there is a cost to it that you don't have with this application as well as Fusion 360. But it's pretty powerful, especially if you're coming from that other application, SolidWorks, which is quite expensive once you get out of school. So take a look at this, see what you think. Another product that you can download and get a free version, we've talked about this before, and is a tool that not only allows you to create um, 3D designs, but it also uses, it's hard to describe, but essentially some abilities to mold or modify the structure to remove as much material without reducing the strength of it. And this is a product that has been in the works. We may have covered it before, but you can now download a free version, and then there's a pro version that you can subscribe to. I have downloaded it, but again, I have not tried it. I will get back with you at a later date. I really look forward to trying this because, we all want to, especially if you're creating things to wear on your face, you always want to reduce the weight without obviously reducing the strength of the components. And this may help in those simulations as you remove, and there may even be an automatic functionality to this, but remove material without reducing the strength of the component. And we're seeing more of that by using kind of like nature's method of creating structures. So again, we've talked about this in the future. Take a look at it. There is a free version. Just sign up for it and try it yourself. And I will probably in the next week or two do so myself. All right. So another thing, I just kind of stumbled upon this. If you're interested in having other people design for you, look into Fiverr. I did so. I've been working on, as you know, my chatting with Vincent, but I'm creating an introduction video. And so I had an architect give me a hand in the base, and then I'm kind of filling in the blanks on it. And they're very affordable, and they're around the world. So take a look at them, and I will talk more about that on Monday. All right, so let's move into 3D in medicine. And here we go. All I can say is how important this is. As you know, I have 3D fabricated my wife's skull as well as a few other bone structures for some people that were in need of its use. We know that Chris has been working with a veterinary in his local area in creating bone structures to study and test, setting as well as adding pins to the large thigh bone of a canine. And I just talked to a vet the other day, and they told me that they see a lot of use in this, and they're very surprised that they hadn't heard more on it. But the fact is that canines, with so many different breeds, their structures are so different. This would actually help a lot, taking an MRI or CT and then creating a bone. But more importantly, with this material, the biomimics, it not only has the structural like of a ABS, but you can also print in a squishier um, material. And there are several PDFs if you want to know more about it. If you're in a physician or in the medical field yourself, I would look into it. We've covered other people using something similar, but we have not seen a formal process. Obviously, Stratasys has been in 3D fabrication for several decades now. But by doing this, you could have students who are training for surgery to be able to use materials that have similar properties to organic materials, and learn their skill without actually applying them to a real human or even one of your loved pets. Okay, so take a look at that. In fact, I think I may have a little. Do I have a little video? Yeah, so let me go ahead and play the video.
My primary job is to safely take care of children who have major problems with their heart. One of my secondary jobs is to get the next generation ready to take care of children who have major problems with their heart. 3D models are all about trying to help them do that safely, learning on models instead of learning on patients. Here's an opportunity with 3D models to make the mistakes on the models, and then when you go and perform on a baby, you're an expert performer already.
Every person's disease is inherently different. So 3D printing for us gives us the real uncanny ability to design a product, design a treatment, design an approach. Typically, how would you do that? Well, you'd have to do a protocol and a trial and a study. Now we can come upstairs and get the actual information off the C-arm in the lab, print it off within several hours, and have a physician from downstairs just come up and try it.
The model I used today was a lumbosacral junction model. Anatomically, it seemed very accurate. Cannulating, putting a pedicle in, putting a screw in, felt very typical or very similar to putting it in native anatomy.
The new material, it has the better elasticity, better strength. So for the surgical procedures, the new material absolutely much better.
The good things about them, they're like quite soft, so you can manipulate them very well. You can retract and do like better exposure because they are so malleable.
The first foray we had was in device testing. We were trying to test how effectively a particular kind of tube can get up to the brain, depending on tortuosity. We designed a series of models with differing level of tortuosity from the chest all the way to the brain, and then tested the devices to see how they perform under those circumstances. Again, impossible to do in the animals, impossible to do in patients, and really 3D printing makes it so easy to be able to do that in a smooth, streamlined fashion.
If you could operate on the person before you operated on them, how would that device feel? Would you use a different device? Would you not treat the patient? Would you now treat the patient differently?
There is enough complexity in disease and anatomy that I think having this readily available at hand can be very, very useful, and most importantly, provide patients a much safer means of care.
Well, if you're like me, all I can say is, wow. Sadly, I can't afford a Stratasys, but the fact is that they are offering a package in the medical field, I think, is extremely important. As you could see, looks like it's going to be applied very well. And again, it's great to be able to actually practice without having cadavers and obviously making mistakes before actually applying them to real humans. So hats off to Stratasys. Both them and 3D, even though a lot of people complain that they're the big juggernaut, I'm glad to see that they're applying their skills in such areas. All right, so move back onto our next item. Again, 3D fabrication and 3D scanning are very important. What I mean by 3D scanning, you have CT, MRI, or as I call it, topical scanning, surface scanning. But in this case, by actually creating, and here are the size of these components. Actually, I think these are a size comparison with 3D printed implants and a penny. But essentially, this allows them, by taking an MRI CT of the individual, to replace the conductive bones directly in the ear, which they say normally is not a successful process. But now, by creating something that is more, I wouldn't say adaptable, but more conforms to the size of the individual, and more important, the accuracy of the bones that they're replacing, should provide better performance, and more importantly, provide hearing. So again, I would consider a miracle is providing 3D fabrication in another area that could literally restore hearing to many people. So just, obviously I'm just a cursory view on all these, but go back and read them. I think is extremely important. Okay, so into the 3D scanner and darkly section. I thought this was interesting. Actually, I saw an article on RT, but I'll get to that in a moment. Obviously, it had a more political spin. But this is a new scanner, but it's not new because we've been talking about CT scanners for some time in the Well, sorry for that disruption. Essentially, Google just wants to make sure it's me. It's kind of frustrating. Well, I must have exceeded the 30-minute point. So, um, no, yeah, maybe so. So, obviously, I'm going to move on. This is going to be utilized in TSA stations. Currently, right now, it's being used in Phoenix. But essentially what it is working with a medical grade 3D CT scanner. And we've talked about CT scanning and tomography, what makes it different than the scanning systems now. Let's assume this is your standard scanner. It's a two-dimensional object, But by using this process, we can actually rotate, turn around, and actually look at, and more importantly, evaluate through AI and other techniques, objects in your luggage without having to pull things out. But the RT article that I was talking about says that the TSA doesn't have the money to actually buy a bunch of these. And again, that could be a political spin. I have not read that elsewhere. I think mainly it's in testing. And in this case, was it American Airlines that actually purchased the ones to be used in the Phoenix Sky Harbor in obviously Phoenix. So if you're traveling, or you have traveled and traveled through Phoenix, you may have noticed you had a quicker response getting through the checkout, and you can thank this technology being applied there. So it is expensive, but it could be well worth it if it does help in preventing or detecting things in your, not in your luggage, but people's luggage that could be considered weapons without having to pull everything out. And I've heard I don't know if this article mentioned it, that you now have to pull out your iPad and other devices, and it would just be hell for me personally because I carry so much junk with me when I travel. So more that we can utilize technology to expedite things, but also keep us safer. I'm for it. Okay, so let's move on to our actual VR in the corner, and we'll talk a little bit about the background of the program that just came out. And I had a little video when I started. If you missed it, when this goes back up on YouTube, watch it. Essentially, I captured some video of me floating through the station and listening to one of the videos of one of the astronauts. I thought the whole thing was just a really fun experience, but be warned, if you are sensitive to VR sickness, make sure you have a bucket nearby. This really gives you the sensation that you're floating, and the sensation can be jarring. So I'm preparing you. But other than that, it really felt like I was in the ISS. The sounds were realistic, the graphics are realistic, and if you look at the end of my video in there, it has a panel that I just was experimenting with that you can bring up and modify some of the settings. And one of them is if you've got a machine that's capable of rendering in higher graphics, it does have a mode to give you even more detail to improve that. You can actually control the movement of a satellite outside the ISS. That felt, in my opinion, fairly realistic. They apply forces, so if you touch something in microgravity, you're going to accelerate in the reverse direction. So keep all that in mind. I was kind of clumsy. I had more footage, but I didn't want you to endure my clumsiness. But I guess after a while, you do get used to it. And I can see this being a great tool. And the other thing I want to point out, I actually had a chance when I was gosh, in the mid 80s, no, about 1988, of actually going to Huntsville, Alabama, to the NASA site there and actually walking through one of those ISS modules. So to be able to be floating through it, I thought was pretty cool. And it does seem as sterile and what would you call it? Uh, kind of techy as you see there. So it's not aesthetically pleasing, but it is very functional, functional design, and having to actually walk through it on the ground and actually be able to see the model and kind of float through it. I thought was pretty cool. The other point I want to make is, obviously Alabama is getting a lot of horrible news, but from a tech perspective, NASA has been at least for a few decades now, a central location in Alabama, and they do astronaut training as well as research on rockets and obviously the ISS as well. So not everything in Alabama is bad. All right, so let's move on to our next item. Well, actually, a little bit more. If you have an Oculus, you can download it there. It's also available on the HTC Vive. So I highly recommend choosing it. I thought it was pretty cool with the Oculus because I liked their controllers a little bit better. It made you feel like you were actually interacting with it. So if you got an Oculus, it's free. It's a no-brainer. Try it. It's one of the better ones out there. Okay, as far as applications go. All right, let's move on to something else that I thought was cool that was just announced, and that's Amazon Sumerian. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. If not, sorry. Essentially, this is supposed to provide VR, AR, and 3D experiences. It will support multiple platforms. And even if you don't have a VR viewer, you can still view it. Here's a sample scene, which I'll go ahead and launch. Let's hope that it starts. There we go. And there we go. So essentially, it's like a 3D engine, but it's set up to be able to import your 3D models, create your room, and then bring in basically AI-driven or computer. Look at that; they've got a little Amazon unit in the middle there. But you can bring in one of their animated models, and then it will speak. So you can do training, as they show here. But you can use it obviously for many different things. The models, I'll go ahead and play a video. Let's see where I've got it. Sorry, got to find it. Okay, no. I had it here in a moment. That's kind of sad. Here it is. All right, so we'll play the little video.
Hello, my name is Christine.
Be forewarned,
I'm a
it is very
Sumerian
computer
host.
sounding.
Amazon Sumerian lets you create and run virtual reality and augmented reality applications. You can use it to build almost any kind of AR or VR app, such as a virtual training classroom. You can even create a virtual simulation of the surface of Mars. In Sumerian, you can easily create a digital character like me. You can choose my appearance, voice, language, and you can define how I interact with your users. I can do things like narrate a script, respond to questions, and guide users of your application throughout a scene. You can use Sumerian's integration with Amazon Polly to input the text that I'll speak. I can use multiple voices, and I even speak other languages. Sumerian's integration with Amazon Lex gives me automatic speech recognition and natural language understanding. That means I'll be able to understand spoken word and know how to respond to it. That's all for now.
Now, what's important
give
behind
Sumerian
this tool is that it's obviously an AWS tool, so a lot of the cloud functionality that you have at AWS will be available in this, as well as the Amazon Lex system that's available for translating text. But as you notice, it seemed very stilted and computer-like, not like Alexa, but I would not be surprised if we see some Alexa technology being applied to this in the future. I've signed up for their pre-release. You can do as well. I have not received information back. You do need to set up yourself an AWS account if you have not had one already. But I think it's worth taking a look at. You know, even though I use some of the more hardened graphics engines, having something you can just throw together and make available to people online, in this case, is for training, but you could also use this to demonstrate architectural designs. I mean, obviously the lighting looks fairly good. So it could be used, and then obviously to bring in a lot of people into the same environment. And keep in mind, they also have the Lumberyard graphics, which was based off the Crytek engine that they've really been pushing. I'm going to talk about it a little bit later in one of my demo areas, now that they have a better tool to bring in your content outside the system. In the past, you pretty much had to use 3D Studio, but now they have an FBX importer, so it makes the process a lot easier for using, let's say, Blender or other tools that may be in your disposal. Okay, so try this out, and I think that's, let's see. Yep, got one more item and a little video, so I'll go ahead and play the video for it. It's, it's a little, what would you call it, artsy. So here you go, and then we'll get into a little bit about the product in a second.
The problem with virtual reality is resolution. With technology inspired by human evolution, this is the beginning of a revolution. This is the beginning of a revolution.
So there you go. I assume that it's pronounced Varo or Varjo, since it is from, gosh, I want to say Sweden. I would like to say it's, I don't know. I'm not going to. They didn't actually mention it in the video, so I don't know how it's pronounced. So if you know how it's pronounced, let me know. So I'll just say Varho for now. But essentially, what makes this headset a little different, one, if you notice, there's no straps. Yet, if you look down in the tech information, it's supposed to be Steam compatible. So, as far as I know, I don't know if this thing is wireless or not, but I don't think so. So, the fact is, you have no straps seems kind of funny. Also, being Steam, unless they've got a really super fast computer in there, which I don't know, they don't show any computers when they show their demonstration. But the main thing is the technology behind this is that it uses two sets of what do you want to call it? Displays, a larger context display, and then a smaller 1920 1080s display, and eye tracking to provide native eye resolution to where you're focused, and by that, that allows you to see things as though you were looking into space. So clearly, some of the opportunities here is in architectural rendering, and you saw in the first one, I didn't get it at first, but I guess for an individual to actually see their baby while it's in the womb. I guess that was the message there, but from a medical perspective, and then obviously for industrial design, vehicles, and so forth. And the fact is that it's supposed to have high resolution clarity, and there's been a couple of, I think we've covered it as well. Uh, this will make a very stunning application, but as you see in these models here, it doesn't have any straps. So is it just a viewer? If it's a viewer, how are they getting information to it? So all this is kind of here, it talks about Steam VR tracking with controller support. So I have signed up for an early access. I could see its use if it is truly VR tracking capable of what I'm doing, which is creating architectural VR cave for engineers and so forth. So having something that really looks as though you're looking at a real scene, again, the graphics are going to be important, I think, is one of the reasons this has been in the news. But you can sign up for a pre-release. They've already had some shipments. They may be out already. I think that was the case of this to early access developers. I don't believe I signed up then, so we'll see if I get one or not. But cool little device, and look forward to seeing more about it. But again, I'm a little hesitant that you have to hold it in front of your eyes, and then also where does it get the feed of information from? This isn't clearly identified either, even though it's Steam control. Where are the wires? Um, who knows? Maybe it's all built into it, which would be very, very cool. Okay, so I think, yeah, that's about it. And as mentioned, this is just our news program, but I want to go back and I want to talk about something. I pretty much do this show for free. And I know that there are many podcast people and YouTube channel people who basically give their time away, don't make any money at it because we love what we're doing. And sadly, there are people out there who profit. And in my case, I think one of the big issues now is sexual harassment and disparaging of women that I personally don't see a need for. I think it's horrendous, and I personally um, you know think that it's very important that everybody, including especially in a 3D field, a lot of it being so new, anybody who's in it requires respect. Anybody from anywhere in the world. That is my belief system. To see anybody disparage other people really makes me upset. So I have been an avid listener to the Twit Network and their podcast. They've got a lot of great co-hosts, but sadly, what do you want to call it? The chairman, the owner of it, Leo Laporte, I guess he's drawn a line. And with all the stuff in the news that we're seeing with sexual harassment, I have decided I am no longer going to be viewing his podcast. I feel that no, he's crossed the line and he continues crossing line. And I'm going to play a little video. And after seeing this, it was like, I just really can't believe that they allow this guy to still be on the air with these kind of remarks. Really. So, I mean, I leave it up to you. I mean, to me, it's really assaulting and to my ears, as well as this is obviously visual. This was taped prior to the show, but clearly the individual was shocked by what he said to her. All right, I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, that one's very clean. Do we have a dirty keyboard?
Oh.
Do you want a dirty
Why
keyboard?
Is that light?
Do you want a dirty keyboard?
I have a sort of dirty keyboard.
Do you want a dirty Sanchez? Do you want this needs to be clean.
Well, there you go. I really can't believe someone would say something like, if you don't know what that means, look it up. I'm not going to say it here. On that note, I will see you guys Monday. If you want to come in and listen to me talk about some of these products and what my thoughts are on them, as well as to talk about some of the things that I've been working on and hopefully some tips on so that you don't make the same mistakes. On that note, I will see you Monday or next Saturday. Bye.